Ladies and gentlemen, something just shifted in professional golf, not subtly, not quietly. Surprised. Something seismic just happened, and if you're not paying attention right now, you're going to miss the moment the entire conversation around this sport changed direction. We need to talk about what just went down, because this isn't about one tournament. This isn't about one trophy. This is about one of the most polarizing, most debated, most impossible to ignore figures in the game suddenly becoming the center of everything again at the exact moment when golf itself feels more fractured, more tense, and more unpredictable than it has in decades. Size. There are moments in this sport where one story is already massive on its own, and then another starts building around it at the same time, and suddenly you can feel the entire conversation around the game shifting beneath your feet. That is exactly where we are right now. And for golf fans everywhere, this matters in ways that extend far beyond any single leaderboard. Bryson DeChambeau just won back-to-back LIV golf titles. Let that sink in for a moment. Singapore, then South Africa, 2 weeks, 2 trophies. And the way he did it in Johannesburg tells you everything you need to know about where this man's head is right now and why the entire golf world is suddenly paying very close attention. At LIV Golf South Africa, played at Stein City in Johannesburg, DeChambeau and Jon Rahm both finished regulation at 26 under par. 72 holes of intense, pressure-packed golf, dead even, 2 of the biggest names in the sport standing toe-to-toe. And then Bryson stepped up to the first playoff hole and buried a birdie to take down one of the best players on the planet. This was his 5th LIV golf title overall. This was his 2nd consecutive win after taking Singapore just days earlier. And this was absolutely not some soft field situation where he coasted to victory against no-name competition. Anyone trying to push that narrative needs to look at who was actually on that leaderboard. Jon Rahm tied at 26 under before losing in the playoff. Abraham Ancer, Brandon Grace, and Thomas Dietrich finished at 23 under. David Puig and Dean Burmester were right there at 22 under. Richard Bland came in at 17 under. Laurie Cantor, Sergio Garcia, and Cameron Smith finished at 16 under. Tom McKibben was at 14 under. Dustin Johnson was at 12 under. Paul Casey and Tyrrell Hatton came in at 10 under. Ian Poulter sat at 7 under. Lee Westwood was at 6 under. Read those names again. That is not a weak field. That is a who's who of major champions, Ryder Cup heroes, and internationally recognized stars. These are players who have won on the biggest stages in golf. These are players who have competed under the most intense pressure the sport can offer. And Bryson didn't just win. He survived real, legitimate pressure against the absolute best LIV has to offer. And the playoff itself was a masterclass in refusing to lose. It was the kind of moment that separates the good players from the players who simply will not be denied. On the par 5 18th, after torrential rain had turned the course into a muddy, treacherous mess, DeChambeau's tee shot found a terrible lie. The grass was soaked. The conditions were brutal. Any sane player might have looked at that situation and played it safe, laid up, taken the conservative route, and hoped for a birdie to extend the playoff. Bryson DeChambeau is not that player from that garbage spot from a lie that would have made most professionals wince. He absolutely ripped a fairway wood into the heart of the green. That was not a safe play. That was not a conservative play. That was a shot of a man who decided he was going to take the title by force, conditions be damned. Rahm, meanwhile, had the fairway. He had the cleaner setup. He had every advantage you could possibly want in a playoff situation. And his second shot found the greenside bunker. He got on in 3, missed his birdie putt to the right, and suddenly the door was wide open. DeChambeau's eagle putt stopped just short. He tapped in for birdie. Tournament over, Bryson wins. That sequence says everything about where his game is right now. Rahm had the cleaner path, but Bryson hit the boulder shot when it mattered most. That is the difference between playing not to lose and playing to win. And then came the moment that is going to follow him into the Masters and beyond. He broke down. Not a quick smile and a fist pump, not the typical golfer face of muted satisfaction that we've become accustomed to seeing at trophy presentations. Real tears, raw, unfiltered emotion. The kind of moment you simply cannot fake. He said he wished he could explain why he was so emotional and admitted that a lot had happened in his life over the last week. He talked about being grateful for his team and everyone supporting him through everything. And then he said something that honestly landed differently than anything I've heard him say before. Quote, "Golf is a fickle game. game. You work so hard at it your whole life, and then you realize golf is just golf. Let that sit with you for a moment. That doesn't sound like a man celebrating a paycheck. That doesn't sound like someone checking a box on a career accomplishment list. That sounds like someone carrying something deeper, something heavier, and finally letting it out in the moment when the pressure released. And here's why that matters so much for the broader conversation around this sport. Bryson DeChambeau has always been a lightning rod. Some fans absolutely love him. They love the power. They love the science experiment approach to the game. They love the YouTube content and the personality. Some fans can't stand him. They find him abrasive. They got tired of the constant spotlight he seems to demand. Some people made up their minds about him years ago and never looked back. But when a player like that wins with this much pressure, beats Jon Rahm in a playoff, and then cries on camera with that kind of raw vulnerability, it changes the temperature around him completely. He stops being just controversial. He stops being just polarizing. He starts feeling human again. That is a powerful shift. And the golf world is feeling it right now, whether they want to admit it or not. But the individual victory doesn't tell the whole story. DeChambeau's Crushers GC also won the team event by a single shot. That team consists of Bryson DeChambeau, Paul Casey, Charles Howell III, and Anirban Lahiri. They edged out Stinger GC, the South African squad featuring Louis Oosthuizen, Dean Burmester, Brandon Grace, and Charles Schwartzel. This matters for multiple reasons. First, the event itself was historic. Live Golf South Africa was the first live tournament ever held on African soil. More than 100,000 spectators were expected across the week. The atmosphere was massive. The energy was electric. The stakes were elevated beyond a typical tour stop. And Bryson won both the individual and the team title in front of that crowd. He delivered when the moment was biggest. He came through when the eyes of an entire continent were watching. It also adds another critical layer when you remember how different this win was from Singapore just 1 week earlier. Last week, Rikuya Hoshino missed a short putt on the final hole and basically handed DeChambeau that victory. Critics were quick to point it out. They called it lucky. They said he caught a break. They implied the win had an asterisk attached to it. South Africa answered all of that criticism definitively. This time, Bryson had to go take it himself with a monster second shot under playoff pressure against one of the best players in the world. Same result, completely different script. That's usually when people stop calling it a hot week and start calling it legitimate form. And here's where this gets truly fascinating for the entire sport of golf. When Bryson DeChambeau is playing like this, the conversation never stays contained to LIV Golf. It simply cannot be kept in that box. It spills out. It reaches the majors. It reaches fans who don't watch every LIV event. It reaches casual viewers who only tune in for the biggest moments. It reaches people who swore they were done caring about him. You cannot ignore a guy who just won in Singapore and South Africa in back-to-back weeks, beating names like Jon Rahm and climbing over fields packed with major champions, Ryder Cup players, and proven international stars. It doesn't work. The gravitational pull is too strong. The storyline is too compelling. And with the Masters getting closer by the day, that gravity is only going to intensify. Here's the thing about Augusta that the entire golf world understands. The Masters forces everything back together. It doesn't matter what tour you play on. It doesn't matter what side of the divide you've chosen. When April comes, the best players in the world converge on one course, and suddenly all the separation disappears. DeChambeau is eligible. Rahm is eligible. Cameron Smith is eligible. Dustin Johnson is eligible. Sergio Garcia is eligible. Tyrrell Hatton is eligible. Brooks Koepka is always relevant when you talk about live stars competing at majors. The majors force comparisons that people have been avoiding. They force narratives that make everyone uncomfortable. They force fans to ask the question that has haunted this sport since the LAV breakout. Who actually looks dangerous right now based on current form? Bryson DeChambeau is absolutely on that list. Based on the last 2 weeks, you could argue he's at the very top of it. Now, there's been speculation about what all this momentum means behind the scenes. There are reports suggesting that DeChambeau's recent dominance has intensified internal conversations within the PGA Tour. Multiple industry sources have indicated that his impact has gone beyond the leaderboard into viewership numbers, social media engagement, and the broader attention economy of professional golf. Let me be absolutely clear about what is confirmed and what remains industry chatter. The confirmed facts are that Cameron Young won the Players' Championship, Matt Fitzpatrick won the Valspar Championship, Those are legitimate big moments on the PGA Tour side. Those victories matter and they deserve recognition. The confirmed fact is also that Bryson's recent LIV run has been highly visible, deeply emotional, and impossible to ignore heading into the year's first major. That part is undeniable. What remains unconfirmed are the specific claims about PGA Tour alarm, digital engagement numbers outperforming recent PGA Tour events, quiet outreach from PGA Tour leadership to people connected to DeChambeau, substantial financial packages being discussed, or any specific return pathway tied to the Masters. I'm not presenting those as hard facts because they haven't been verified through official channels. But here's what we can say with absolute confidence. When a player starts stacking results like this, when the emotional moments go viral, when the storylines write themselves week after week, people at every level of professional golf pay attention. That's just how the business works. That's just how attention economics function in modern sports. Cameron Young's Players' Championship victory was a huge story. Matt Fitzpatrick's Valspar win was a real story. But Bryson's recent run has a different kind of energy entirely. It feels louder. It feels more emotionally charged. It feels more combustible. It feels like it's pulling oxygen from every other conversation in the sport, whether that shows up in television ratings, social media clips, podcast discussions, or pure golf group chat chaos around the world. It changes the atmosphere around the entire game. One player catching fire like this never stays contained to one tournament or one tour. It affects how fans talk. It affects how people react. It affects how the biggest organizations in golf start thinking behind closed doors. And the presence of Jon Rahm in that playoff makes everything hit harder. This wasn't Bryson beating nobodies on a random Sunday. He had to close the deal against one of the best players in the world, a former world number one, a major champion, a player who commands respect everywhere he goes. That adds credibility. That adds weight. That makes the storyline impossible to dismiss, no matter how badly some people might want to. The talent split in men's golf is still shaping the entire ecosystem of the sport. Every big result reopens the same fundamental question that has haunted professional golf since the LIV breakout began. Who really has the players commanding the most attention right now? Bryson DeChambeau just gave his answer. 2 trophies in 2 weeks. A playoff win over Jon Rahm, tears on the green that felt real and raw, and a team championship to go with the individual title. The majors are coming. Augusta is waiting. And whether you love Liv, hate Liv, love Bryson, or absolutely cannot stand him, you're going to hear his name constantly in the build-up. That's not opinion. That's not speculation. That's reality. That's what happens when one player catches fire at exactly the right moment and refuses to let go. Something important just happened in golf, and the crazy part is I don't think we've seen the full impact of it yet. This is just the beginning. The ripple effects are going to spread across the entire sport in the weeks and months to come. If you're a real golf fan who follows everything happening across the sport every single week, make sure you hit that like button and subscribe. If you enjoy honest golf talk from one fan to another, you're in the right place. And trust me, you're going to want to be here for what comes next.